The following podcast is a next level production.
You're gonna have to change the way you live your life now. Avoid stressful situations, stay away from people.
I can't stay away from people. How am I supposed to do my job?
You can't go back to your job. You stay here until you figure out how to control your Hulk self.
Well, how long is that going to take?
This is a multi-year journey you're about to embark on coming to terms with being the Hulk.
Hey, panelists, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this is going to be a spoiler-full podcast about She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Season 1, Episode 1. So, Steve, want to give us that synopsis that we got?
Sure. Absolutely. The title of this one is A Normal Amount of Rage, and the synopsis is short and sweet. Jen Walter's world is turned upside down after a freak accident leaves her with superpowers.
Very short, very sweet. But what we got out of this literally is a definitely an origin story of how she got those powers, how she was trained, and where she's at. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are not aware of She-Hulk itself. They've only known it from the comics when she was in certain comics here and there. She was a fourth member of the Fantastic Four when Ben Grimm, the Thing, actually stepped away from the Fantastic Four and she filled in his slot. And she was there for about a good 20 issues. And that was John Byrne's run. And Dan Slott did his own version of She-Hulk, or the Sensational She-Hulk. I'm forgetting which, but there was one that was called She-Hulk and there was one called Sensational She-Hulk. And the character itself has been very different in comparison to most. Now, mind you, before there was Deadpool, there was She-Hulk, and she did break the fourth wall when it came to the comics. So she did actually speak out to the audience as you were reading a comic, or she would rip a panel and say, I'm not happy with that scenario, so we're going to go on to the next one and then take off from the story from there. So the character itself is kind of tongue-in-cheek for the most part, but she is very prominent in the Marvel comics. She did get her powers, yes, from her cousin Bruce Banner. In the comics, it's a little different, and we'll talk about that as we talk about the episode, because this is an origin episode. And to start off with my initial thoughts, I thought it was pretty cool how she starts off at breaking that fourth wall and introducing herself. And apparently she already had her powers at a certain point from 2 or 3 months before. And then she's back in the courtrooms doing what she normally does. And I think it's great that we get that. And then we get the whole story of how she obtained her powers, how she was trained, and what she did when she went on from there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good. I loved the humor. I loved the slightly adult content. It was bordering on that line of adult content. And we'll talk some more about that later. But yeah, it was really, really cool the way. And I'll admit, you just talking about that. And I listed out the breaking of the fourth wall moments in part of my notes. But it just occurred to me that it never blew the tension for me about her returning to her life as an attorney, knowing that she returns to her life as an attorney. It didn't dawn on me until just now that didn't bother me during the episode, that, oh, well, we know what the end result is going to be. She is going to get back to her attorney career. It never dawned on me until you just now were talking about it, that we knew through the whole, every time she's talking about wanting to come back and be a lawyer, we could have just gone, well, we know she's going to be there. Why are they telling us? Why are they showing us this? But I didn't have that. So that's a good thing for the story, that that break of the fourth wall, introducing the origin story, was a great way to suck me in to where I'm invested in. Is she going to get back? Is she going to figure out how to use this? And it was that was really, really cool that I realized that I did have the tension of, is she going to be able to transform? What's going to happen? I didn't lose that tension because of that opening introduction.
Yeah, which is pretty cool, because the Dan Slott version, or his run of She-Hulk, she addressed and was consistently She-Hulk form, but Jennifer Walters always announced herself as Jennifer Walters, even though she was She-Hulk in this big suit, big tall green person in the courtroom.
So she just stayed as Hulk.
She stayed as She-Hulk. There was times where she would be consistently in the She-Hulk form, and she did that in the Fantastic Four. She wasn't able to transform back. And in this case, within this particular show, from what we could tell, she's able to willingly change to and from that form and retain her consciousness, because the initial run of She-Hulk, and to give you like a little brief story of the reasoning why we got She-Hulk, the comic came out right around the time that the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno TV series was around. And it was their way of pretty much marketing on that because, well, they had sold their rights to Universal, Marvel at that time. So this was Stan Lee's. I think he was involved within the first 3 issues. And then, all right, so it was called the Savage She-Hulk. So in the very beginning of that particular run, she was not able to control her powers. She would only get them through anger, just like with Bruce and his powers. So she would get angry, or some sort of emotional thing will cause her to trigger and turn into She-Hulk. And she wouldn't remember a lot of things of what happened when she was in She-Hulk form. So to give like a little brief of that, and then later on during the runs, she was able to control her powers, go from Jen to She-Hulk, and then by I believe Sensational She-Hulk, she was just literally in full She-Hulk form, just like in the Fantastic Four run. 275 was one issue that I enjoyed most because it was literally Stan Lee in the front of the cover saying, "What is 7 foot tall, green, and has a staple in her navel?" And it was literally because she was sunbathing nude on the top of the Baxter building, and there was and the whole story revolves around them because the paparazzi was out there taking pictures. So she was put into Playboy or something, and that was the whole. And that was at a time when Marvel was trying to get a little more like adult oriented within the comics itself. But you didn't really see anything, honestly. It was one of those things where they were just trying to get it. So it's like, oh, this is controversial. And I enjoyed it for the fact that I was like, oh, okay, they're kind of popularizing her. And actually within the comic itself, she goes a little crazy and goes off and attacks the paparazzi and everything else, and then uses her legalese to stop it. Because, not only was she a lawyer, but she was part of the Fantastic Four. But she was very prominent. There are other alternate versions because there was, if you remember, Logan, the run Logan, like the movie was based after, which was in an alternate universe. In this case, Bruce and her, of all things, had children, and they had like really weird offspring. So we had various versions, but I think they topped off on Dan Slott's and John Byrne's run, combining them both and making it work for this particular show. And I really enjoy that for the fact that, it's got that campiness and fun in it, the breaking of the fourth wall. And there are just regular jokes, as we see in the promos, about how, when she's talking to from Bruce. Doctor Strange, he goes, "Oh, the Book of Ashanti." She goes, "No, the Book of the Law." So
is that in one of the trailers? I have not watched all the trailers and stuff yet, so I didn't want to get spoiled. I got spoiled about too much watching the trailers already.
Wong apparently makes an appearance, but
okay.
These are sort of like little quick jokes within it about legal, a lot about. I think they're probably going to run it in the sense of where she has to represent people of powers that are showing up, people who are gifted in some way that have issues. And I think that's why we do see snippets of Emil Blonsky, who's the Abomination. There have been teases that Daredevil will be in it because we all know that Matt Murdock is a lawyer. So I'm looking forward to what we get for the rest. We only have 5 more episodes. I say issues, but 5 more episodes of this.
I think it's a longer run. At least IMDb has it listed as, hold on, because I just looked at this the other day.
Oh,
And
really? It's going to be
wanna
longer than 6 episodes.
I believe, because let me double check, because 9. It's
9.
IMDb has it slotted for 9 episodes, has it running through October 13th.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
don't know what that means for the length of time of the episodes.
Well, considering this one was
You
only
know.
about 37 minutes, but it was very entertaining. It goes by fast.
Yeah.
And we do get a lot of information within. So with that, let's just move into our highlights or our top 5s or points of interest within She-Hulk.
Sure. I loved the moment when we first see her after she wakes up, after mixing the blood with Bruce, and she goes to that club and she's all disheveled, and her shirt is tore and her pants, and those girls see her in the bathroom. They're just like, "Honey, we need to take care of you," and they're all like doing her makeup, and she's like, "I don't need you to do my makeup." And they're like, "No, we need to do your makeup." And then who brings extra shoes to the club?
That's a good question.
Is that a thing? Because the girl goes, "Oh, I've got you need some this is a public bathroom, here I've got extra, or I've got a pair," or something like that. And I'm like, what? Who brings extra shoes? So I loved it. And it wasn't until the second watch that I realized, because the first watch I must have blinked and missed it, because I was like, wait, did she just growl at those guys and she left? But no, you see a quick snip of Hulk basically jumping in and grabbing her before she is able to attack those guys who are accosting her outside the bar. There's a real quick, you see a blur basically of what this huge blur that grabs her and takes her away. And then we go to the next scene of her waking up in Mexico, in Bruce's Mexican Fortress of Solitude. That's what I'm going to call it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is a good question about the clubs and the shoes. I'm curious, but only a woman could actually answer that question.
Yeah, maybe a woman out there who listens can tell us, do you bring extra shoes because you expect you're going to lose your shoes? I don't know.
Well, maybe in their car, or, if they have a big purse, maybe, because, think about it. We as men don't wear high heels, and that is killer on the feet.
Yeah, so
from what I'm told by a lot of women.
Maybe that's what it was.
You have
I
to
don't
have
know.
a pair of at least comfortable shoes,
I guess.
I already brought it up as far as like the whole origin. That was my big thing, is it's a whole origin story.
Mhm.
The difference between the comic and the show is the way she obtains her powers. So in the comic, in the very first one that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, literally she was like representing somebody and she gets shot, but Bruce is there, but he winds up giving her a blood transfusion and then he just up and leaves. He doesn't even show her how to use her powers or anything. He just thinks she's okay, but he was always on the run from the law at that point. And in this case, it was pretty interesting how it's like, they make it very much aware. Like, he's like, "Jen, get off. I'm bleeding. Don't get near me. I'm bleeding." So that's the very first time in the cinematic or in the MCU that we see Bruce really concerned about his blood infecting others. And she gets that cut, and then she gets it on there and into her bloodstream.
I was curious about that because I listened to Greg and Penny introduce how they're going to do their podcast on it, and she mentions that it was a blood transfusion in the comics and that he just up and leaves. And I'm like, is he aware in the comics? Because like here, like you just said, he's aware that his blood can't mix with other people's blood.
Yeah.
He's aware of it. I wonder if in the comics maybe he wasn't aware of it, and that's why he just up and leaves and doesn't wait to see what the effects are. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the idea and the kind of reasoning within the comics, he thought, well, she probably can't get my powers or whatever, but we have the same blood type. And it was one of those things where he rushed it and then he up and bounced because the cops were on his tail. Very like in the Ferrigno Bixby show where he was always on the run. So he up and left. But in this case, the way the accident happened, I thought it was pretty cool because it was a Sicarian ship. And Bruce mentions it when he's got her and he's there to test her about her powers and things of that nature. And
this was actually my next point, was this kind of throwaway line where he just says, "Oh yeah, it was a Sicarian courier craft. I'm going to have to deal with that at some point."
Yeah.
And then we just move on. And there's no other reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be referenced later in something else.
It's a setup, definitely, because
you've been talking about Secret Wars. You've been talking about What's the invasion? The invasion one you've been talking
Secret
about?
Invasion is about the
Secret
Skrulls.
Invasion. Okay, so I don't know. I'm just saying that obviously that's a setup for something.
It's definitely
they're not going to have this.
Yeah, they've been working on rights. Disney Marvel have been working on the rights of trying to get World War Hulk, or there was another Hulk run where it's like Hulk just basically destroys the universe. Because in the comic books, Sakaar is where he gets banished to on Earth from Earth by Reed Richards and a lot of people from the Illuminati because they see as the Hulk being very dangerous. So they banish him.
It's a setup or something.
It's a setup, unlike what we got in Age of Ultron, where Bruce kind of gets taken away by Quinjet and he flies off, and then he's on that other planet. And then he's
the collector. That's
where the collector is,
right?
And everything else. But in this case, in the comics, he becomes very much like a king of his own planet, gets married, has children, and he has a son named Scar. But that's the comic. In this case, the MCU is changing it completely. I'm pretty sure they're setting us up where he gets either taken back to Sakaar for some reason, and they need him, or he did wind up having a kid. Who knows? Maybe that's why the Sicarian ship was there. But they did. It was kind of like, oh, well, we got this ship. And it's like, I'll deal with that later. And then he was more concerned of getting Jen on the road of learning how to use her powers. But I like how they kind of make that direction within the show very similar to the Bixby Ferrigno show, where you do see Jen and him when they Hulk out in the very beginning, when she transforms for the first time and when Bruce transforms after the accident just happens, how it looks very much like how Bill Bixby used to, where it gets angry and we haven't seen that from the Ruffalo Hulk version at all for a long, long time. So
yeah, that's a good catch. I didn't catch that, but now that you say that, I go, yeah, it is very the way they filmed it and did the special effect on that was very close to the old TV show.
Yeah, and I really like that element within it. Plus, I love when she does wake up, he's there and he's already ready to test her about her powers. And it's funny to see Tatiana Maslany standing next to this fake Hulk, and she looks like a little kid. And then every time I saw the teaser trailers for months before the show actually showed up, I'm like, was she like a little kid at the time when she did this? And I'm like, oh, wait, that is her. Oh, my God, he is just that tall. And it makes me think, how tall is Tatiana Maslany? Because Hulk, in this case, is supposed to be about maybe 8-9 feet tall at most. And she towers in between 6'7" and 7 foot in the show.
Yeah, that's what the synopsis for the show says. She's 6'7" as Hulk. But let me see. I'll tell you how tall Tatiana Maslany is.
Yeah. Because I think it's pretty funny.
According to IMDb, she is 5'4".
Okay.
So if when he's in Hulk form, he's almost 3 feet taller than her. Yeah. Almost. So yeah. So he would be kind of, if he is 8 feet, he looked to me like he was bigger than 8 feet.
Same here.
I don't know. Yeah, I loved. Go ahead.
No, I was like, I'm pretty sure both of us just love the training montage. But within that scene when he first puts her in there and she's like freaking out because you're trying to kill me, it's like then she does Hulk out and she gets raged, and because it's like triggering anger and feelings of that nature to get her out, he realizes like, wait a minute, shut the front door. You wait, you're Jen, yeah.
Yeah, I love that moment when he's like go this way, and she's like, why are you trying to herd me like a stray horse? And he just stops and goes, wait a minute, you can talk?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that whole that she's a better Hulk when he's explaining to her about how he got her blood and he was able to heal his arm.
Yes.
And she's like, so I'm a better Hulk. And he's like, no, you're just different. And she's like, which is better? I love, they almost have like a sibling rivalry. Obviously these are two cousins who know each other very well. Obviously they don't tell us. It was the one little criticism I'll give of the show. It just bothered me for a minute in the second watch, was she goes off on him about how he doesn't spend any time with family. He's this, he's that.
Yes.
He's all these nasty things, as he says. But then the show started with them on a road trip to somewhere, coming from somewhere. So obviously he's spent some time, it just didn't connect for me when she's like, you don't spend any time, but yet the show starts with them on a road trip together.
Yes.
So
yeah. And
but
especially,
yeah, I love
I was
yeah.
going to say about the chopsticks with the Cheetos.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. And I love that effect and you saw it in the one trailer when it showed the car accident. You see them flying up in the air. You see the chopsticks and you see the Cheetos, and it was a great effect, even though it's a horrible moment in the show. But yeah, I love that training montage. I love the whole yoga breathing thing. And she's like, I thought it was to get a tight butt and hold your farts in. And she's like, up top, and he's just like, this is not a joke. Like he's not having it. So I thought that was great. I love the whole clapping. That's later. That's later. That's during the fight. But the only other thing that got me kind of like the burping scene was a little bit too much for me. Too adolescent. I mean, I like some juvenile type humor.
Same here,
sometimes,
but that was a little bit. It was like
burping,
after the first one, it was just like, oh, okay,
yeah. The burping was, but yeah, the rest of the training when like he's like, you got to have balance, and he's like showing her he's balancing on one hand, and she like does all these flips and tricks and spins and stuff, and then comes down where she's got one leg out and the other one is like cocked, and he's just like, okay, you're just showing off.
Yeah. Well, you can see is like he's like really annoyed because she's taking it like a duck to water, and he had to learn for so many years, 15 years, he says.
Yeah.
And then that was whole issue was like, I have to get back. I have a job. I want to do what I love, which is law.
Yeah.
And I finally got my own office. I have my own job that I could actually, do law in front of. And he's like, no, you can't. You're a superhero now. You got to deal with this. And she goes, yeah, but look at you. You're on an island or whatever by yourself, away from everybody. You want me to be like you and not have anything? No. So, and it was the constant thing throughout the story plot throughout the whole episode is that she wants to get back because she worked so hard for all these years to be a great lawyer. And it's typical of a man to say, no, you can't do that. And she kind of basically teaches him that, yeah, she could do this. Because she doesn't have the issue that he has where for years he had that other person to contend with. And he had a whole book and he's just ripping out chapters as they go because she's already broken all those barriers.
Yeah, I love that moment because that part when he rips out the book, he goes, well, I guess we don't need this part, but we still need to figure out what triggers you. And then, cuts to them back in their sitting position, their yoga, where she starts to get mad and she hulks out and he goes, see, you're hulking out right now. And she goes, yeah, but I did it at will. And then she goes right back to being Jen. And I love the effect they're using for that because it's so cool that just to see that her being able to change at will and then change back, like that's one thing that I don't think we've ever seen that from the Ruffalo Hulk.
The only time we saw him change too was in the original Avengers as he slowly turns into Hulk because Captain America goes, Mr. Banner, Dr. Banner, you need to change soon. And he goes, well, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. And then he slowly turns into the Hulk. That was like the last time that we actually saw that. Now,
that's the only time we've seen him actually control it,
Yeah. And the thing about Jen, though, within that particular scene, the way she brings it up about how she is able to do that, because she makes a statement about women, how they're always oppressed, they're always being like catcalled, and they're always holding in this anger because men don't. It's kind of that women's point of view of we take in a lot, but we have to deal with it on a regular. And I understand it. And she's able to contain her anger and be able to control herself. And I guess that would make her a good lawyer as well, because those references in the very beginning with her friend saying it's like, oh, you make that angry face. And then she makes So, and there's kind of references towards that because women have to deal with catcalls, all that, and then just kind of move on, but hide it down So she's
Yeah.
able to control her feelings to a certain degree and an element, so that allows her to change at will if need be. But I'm
Yeah.
sure later at a certain point, she's going to be to the point where she's going to be like, no, I'll just stay a She-Hulk. And she can
I don't know.
constantly.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm gonna say I think we're gonna see her just being a lawyer, like at this, like in this episode at the end. One of the things I was waiting for, I had seen Jamila Jamil's name in the credits, and I said, we haven't seen her yet. And then she shows up right there at the end as that super villain or whoever that was that broke into the courtroom. And you see she changes the She-Hulk, she does the fight, and then she comes back down into
and puts her shoes
Jim
back
Walters.
on. Yeah.
And puts her shoes back on and says, okay, I'm ready for my closing arguments. So I don't think we're going to see a point where she's just going to stay permanent. I mean, maybe she will, but I don't see, I mean, maybe she will, but I think that's just speculation on our part of
I think it is too.
We got 9 episodes to go. So who knows? I'm excited for this series, though. I can't wait to see it. I loved, and the quote you were talking about is, she says it's a savage Jen Walters face, and her reply is, "What? I don't have a savage Jen Walters face." And the Nikki's is like, "Well, you're doing it right now." So I thought that was a great line. But yeah, I'm excited for this. Another great moment for me was that whole fight. When, he says, I didn't want to do this, and they're like punching each other, and she's like showing him that she can fight as well. And then he does his big clap and throws her, halfway across the field there. And then she like claps once and like nothing happens. And he's like, like, and then she starts clapping really fast. And that really fast is what gets his head. And so I just love that whole fight scene between two of them, because you can see that they're not really trying to hurt each other, but they're trying to show who's the badder Hulk. Who's the bigger, and they destroy the bar and he's like, you're fixing this.
My bar.
So, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, to the one thing that I was talking about that Bruce was saying to her and how she's triggered and how these happen and how she turns. He goes, the triggers are anger and fear. And she just goes, those are the baseline of any woman just existing. So so it's like,
I almost wrote that line down, but I didn't. So that was good.
So that's the exact quote. The cool thing too about that bar, Tony Stark and Bruce did that, and he says, well, Tony was drinking more than he was helping, but you could see their initials carved in there, and it was something that Bruce loved because it was something that he held on to. The cool part is that his arm is healed now. Obviously, you talked about that. I thought that was pretty cool, and now we don't have to see because I thought for a long time we're going to get stuck with a Hulk with bad arm.
Yeah. I thought that was great. That the whole reference to, this is where I spent most of the blip. He talks about those 5 years of the blip. He said, I spent most of the blip here, and Tony was with me. And that was one of the things that I think is really cool when you look back on the Tony Stark character, is even with Captain America, he had these one-on-ones with people.
Yes.
That
Thor,
that were
Cap.
With Thor, with Captain America, with Spider-Man. He had these one-on-one relationships with them. That is what made him such a special character. And I reflected on that in the second viewing of this episode of how much we're going to miss those one-on-one conversations that we got to see. So
I thought I just love the idea that they use something, especially with the transformations. They talk about it because it is Disney. Bruce goes, these transformations are triggered by distressing emotional states, so we need to know the exact threshold that causes it for you. She goes, oh, put on a Pixar movie when Bing Bong jumps out of the wagon and Inside Out. And they're like, oh, no, not Bing Bong.
That's great.
But
that's great.
I thought that was pretty cool, and they got those in there. And then we could talk about the fight scene too, because it kind of erupts to that point because she wants to leave to go back to her real world. And that fight scene was just what we've been waiting for that whole time. Mind you, the training montage was pretty cool, especially when you had that kind of sibling rivalry or the relative rivalry, as it were, because they're both cousins. When she does something and he gets ticked off and he kind of pushes her over the ledge and gives him the finger as she's falling down. So we got a little bit of that adult humor in there. Now
he throws her over the cliff, and then she jumps back up,
Yep.
and she says something like "dick move" or something
Yep.
like that. And that foreshadows, because then at the end when she pushes him into the boulders and all the boulders fall down, he's like "dick move," and she's like, "I learned from the best," or "I learned from you," or something,
Yep.
something like that. So we got that callback later in the episode. Was really great during the fight.
Yeah. And I love the fact that they could drink with all they want without having
Get drunk without getting drunk.
well,
Yeah.
it's like a steady buzz. But she turns back to human form, and then she's there in the morning when she got a massive hangover headache.
Yeah. She says, I still have to deal with the hangover. Yeah, and I've got some more on that later when we go to cut to the end credit scene. So yeah, there's I'm trying to see what else I've got in my notes here. The three breaking of the fourth wall moments we had here was we had in the beginning where she's introing the show, and I love that whole thing about where she says that she's a Hulk, and she goes, okay, and obviously you're going to be thinking entirely about that during this lawyer show, so we're going to have to deal with that first. And then we cut to, like you said, the origin story. And then in the middle of the origin story, when he says, okay, you can go back, she looks at the camera and she says, he doesn't mean that. And then you see him look at the camera as well, which I thought was cool, was that he kind of broke the fourth. He watched her break the fourth wall.
And he followed through because he got mad at her for what she said.
yeah, at the moment. And then at the end, when she's concluding that part of the show, she says it again. She says, lawyer show, which I just love that she wants this, she wants this normal life. She wants this to be a lawyer show, not a superhero show. And so it's going to be exciting to see how that progresses and those moments that we get. I hope they don't overdo them, but at the same time, I think we had just the right amount in this episode to introduce us to kind of what it's going to be. Kind of like with Deadpool, like he doesn't do it through the whole movie. He does it like certain points in the movie he'll look at, and then we won't see it for a long time. So I really like that moment of that. And like you said, I'm kind of excited. I wonder if we're going to see some of those things about bringing the writers in. Because like that was what you talked about and what Penny and Greg talked about, is that there were a few times in the comics when she would look at a panel and she goes, oh no, I don't like the way this is going. I'm going to go talk to the writers. And then she like ripped the page apart.
Yep.
And in the next panel, she'd be talking to the writers. I hope we get something like that in this show of, oh no, I'm not going to do this scene like this. And have her. I hope we get something like that, but I don't know.
It would be true to the comic if they did something like that. So that, and it'd be funny if, like, because obviously what they want to do is have these characters in the MCU itself as for movies. So if they do that too, because we already have Deadpool doing that in his own movie. Just think of those two in the same film dealing with the same issues.
Man. I didn't notice. Now, did you pay attention? And I'll have to, in the next episode or the next time I watch this episode, I'll have to pay attention to the Marvel scroll at the beginning to see if they added Miss Marvel to it.
Oh, that's a good question.
Show.
Yeah.
Because remember, they did add we did see Moon Knight in the Ms. Marvel crawl of the show at the very end of it, and then it's also in the Love and Thunder movie crawl. You see Moon Knight at the end of that that sequence. So I wonder if they added Ms. Marvel in there as well. I didn't pay enough attention the first couple times watching this one to see if she's in there.
Yeah, good catch. We got to check that out and let us know, listeners, if you find that. To top on what you were starting to mention, you were asking, you didn't know who it was that was in the courtroom scene that she had a battle. That was Titania. Now, that was our first introduction to her within the MCU itself. Now, in the comic book version where she was first introduced, she was originally created specifically for the original Secret Wars, and she was introduced in Secret Wars issue number 3, and that came out in July 1984. And I remember that because they had Volcana and you had Titania, and these were two average women, but it was at a time when Doom was able to, on the Battle World planet that the Beyonder created, was able to give these women who were trapped on Battle World with them and give them powers. Now, in this case, apparently Titania has achieved certain powers somehow, so I'm sure we're going to get a background for the MCU or the Marvel or Disney Plus show version of her. So I'm curious, because all we did was get a quick introduction. You saw that she was able to battle it out with Jen as she was She-Hulk. So I'm curious.
Jen took care of her pretty handily though. So it's I hope we get some more of her.
I'm sure we do. She's very strong. That her character is very kind of strong. She had extra strength, very much like Hulk and She-Hulk and in that case. But she had strong body, like a strong body where she couldn't get pierced or cut. So that's her power structure. But it was kind of like a bit of a tease in this one, but I really do enjoy it. And I'm curious to see the what we get out of her later on. But to touch on something else, which I thought was pretty cool, how she was arguing with Bruce throughout the episode about going back to work. And she goes, you can make me that thing that keeps you in human form. And he goes, that was a prototype dedicated for me. I can't make you something. It's like it was his way of trying to control the issue. But he probably could have made one for her. But in this case, she doesn't really need it because she could transform at will.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
She ends up not needing it.
Yeah, she doesn't need it, especially when she goes to sleep because she wakes up and he's got the air horn. He goes, oh, you do turn back to Jen and then you fall asleep.
Yeah.
That was cute. I like that part.
Yeah. Yeah. All those little moments between them were really, really cool.
Yeah. So,
that's all I got as far as points and notes.
Yeah, same here. That's all I got when it came to my points and my notes and what I liked about the episode. I look forward to whatever we got. Like I said, this episode is only 37 minutes long.
Yeah, I've got 2 quotes I think that I haven't read yet, and that's the one when they're talking when he keeps calling himself Smart Hulk, and then she calls him Smug Hulk, and he says, "No, it's Smart Hulk," and she says, "Well, it's pretty smug to call yourself smart."
Yep.
I thought that was it. That was a good one. And then of course I have to add it because I add it to every voice message if it happens. She says, no, a normal amount of rage. And so, which she said the title of the episode. So we got a mic drop, but I'm not going to drop my mic because we're recording.
One that I have would be from Bruce saying, who's going to protect the world if it isn't people like us? And then Jen just comes back on, are you quoting a comic book right now? So that's kind of breaking the fourth wall too, because they're talking about comics where they came from.
Yeah, that was good.
What else?
That's all I got.
Oh well, I got one.
Okay.
It's Bruce. No, Jen's saying it. Here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time when I'm catcalled in the streets. When incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or might just literally get murdered. So that was the more woman political view that I wanted to bring up because she kind of explains it out there right up front.
I thought it was great because we see that at the beginning of the episode when she's practicing her closing argument, and the guy keeps saying, "Well, I really think it would be better coming from me, this speech." And she's like, "No, this is my speech. I'm not giving you my speech to deliver as a closing argument." So I really thought that was one of those moments where she's holding in her anger there. So,
yeah. The only other one I had was literally, it's like, he goes, who's your best friend? And she mentions Nikki, and she goes, oh, Nikki. No, spandex is your best friend.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. That was something that came from the trailer, but I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So that's all I got too when it comes to the episode as far as quotes and notes, things of that nature. But I think we did cover this fairly well and got a lot out of it.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to.
It was a good episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the episodes coming up. And since you said it's like 9 episodes, oh wow, so it's longer than what we thought. I hope we get more cameos. We already know about Wong. We already know Abomination showing up. There was a hint of something out of Fantastic Four, but those are rumors, so I'm just leaving those as rumors.
Well, and like you already said, the one trailer that I did watch, we did have Daredevil
at the end
on there, and I think at the end, I think we are going to get Matt Murdock as a lawyer. We'll see. I'd like to see all that. I'd like to see them interacting in a courtroom somehow.
Yes, it would definitely be great because we got a little bit of that of Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, we got a little bit of Matt Murdock. We got Charlie Cox back. So I look forward to that as well.
Yep.
All right. Well, just to give you guys a little bit of information, if you're not completely knowledgeable of She-Hulk and you want to find more, just look for Comics Explained on YouTube by Rob. And he's got a nice 45-minute talk and explanation of She-Hulk and her history within the comics. He talks about Dan Slott, John Byrne, all those runs, the Fantastic Four, her interactions with that, and how somewhat they do relate to the show itself. And his idea, he kind of put it out literally the day of the episode coming out, which is pretty cool because it gives those people like kind of like a history lesson of what the show is about before. And I know that certain press people got the episode 2 or 3 days before, and unlike the people that went that I know that got to go see it at a world premiere, they said, "Oh, the effects were terrible. They weren't smooth. They were terrible." And now, by the time I think they have been doing it till the 11th hour and getting these shows up and the effects up and making them look really good. So I think they did smooth out the effects for the CG, especially on Jen. I didn't have any issues when I saw it on promos for Bruce, but I think they really did well. So
yeah.
All right. So next episode that we'll be covering on She-Hulk will be season 1, episode 2. Not sure of the title, but
I do want to recommend one podcast. We've already kind of talked about it, but I want to push it a little bit harder to let everybody go out there and look for She-Hulk Cast, which is on the Podcastica Network. That's Greg, our friend Greg and Penny, doing that podcast. And Penny used to be an attorney.
Yes.
So it's going to be kind of cool to hear her perspective on the show, and especially going forward when we get more courtroom type stuff to see that. So I'm excited to hear what Penny has to say about the show.
Yeah, I like to get her take on how the courtroom procedure goes and how accurate it is in comparison. Now, mind you, some of it might be comic book oriented because they're going to change it. Like I said, there have been talks about how she would represent superpowered people. So it's going to go more or less into more fantasy, but with Titania coming into the courtroom and destroying everything, this particular episode, it was a regular jury and regular court case. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that as well.
Yeah.
All right. And we didn't get any feedback. Obviously, we didn't post it yet, but I guarantee you by the next episode that we do cover when it comes to She-Hulk, we'll put something out there for you guys to put some sort of feedback down. So to submit your feedback, well, we can be heard on a whole different variety of platforms: Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcast, or whatever podcast player of choice that you actually get to hear us on. Obviously, you're hearing us now. If ratings or reviews are available, specifically Apple Podcasts, please do so. We usually get notified if something's there. Please just give a review if you like what we're doing on those platforms.
Absolutely. You can check out our website at panels2pixelspodcast.com. That's panels2pixelspodcast.com. Panels to Pixels podcast, all spelled out in words.
You can go to our Facebook group. Like I stated, we will be putting out an image so that you guys could comment below the image so that way you could talk about it. And then all you have to do is go to facebook.com/panels to pixels.
And we are on Twitter at panels2pixels. That's panels and the number 2 pixels.
You could email us, panels2pixels1@gmail.com. So that's panels2 spelled out to pixels and the number 1@gmail. There you could just type out a regular email, or if you like, you could just record your voice, send it as an attachment. We'll play it on here, and you get to be heard on the podcast.
Absolutely. And we are on YouTube at Panels2Pixels Podcast. You can go on there and give us a thumbs up, subscribe to it. It's just basically our image. So you'll see our podcast art image on there. So again, Panels2Pixels Podcast on YouTube.
And we are on Instagram at Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out.
And you can check out all the other podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network. We highly recommend all of them. Wilhelm the Melting Pat, Podcast Zero, and there's so many more. Just go to nextlevelradioonline.com and you can check all of them out there.
Awesome. And where else can listeners hear us, Steve?
Well, I submit voicemails to various podcasts that our friends do, and when I can. And so you'll hear me on any, usually Strange Indeed. It's a Podcastica one. I try to submit something to Run for Your Lives, which is on the Private Core Entertainment Network, where they review movies, and I'll send them a voice message over the movie that they're covering. So you hear my voice pop up on various podcasts.
You could hear me on the Adrenaline Cinema podcast, and that could be found on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network. Therein we cover action, adventure, fantasy, suspense, thriller movies, anything that gets your adrenaline going. There's going to be a few episodes up. I believe Predator. Steve and I are actually going to cover Prey, which is more the prequel to Predator, and then eventually we'll get to Predator 2. You could also hear our friend Jerry and myself. We cover Planet of the Apes. And I believe we're going to be covering Omega Man soon too. So all you have to do is go to piratecoreentertainment.com. You can check out all the other podcasts there, including Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, just like Steve was mentioning, Run for Your Lives with Daphne and Paik, Fantasy Picks Movie Edition with Rob and his co-hosts, as well as Watched It in the 80s with Damien. But there you can find us there.
Very cool. Well, thank you for listening. Same podcast, different panel, different pistol.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this was Panels to Pixel Podcast, and we'll see you on the next panel. Good night.
Good night.
Pistol.
Pistol. Pistol. I can't say that word.